The story unfolds just after the Soviet Union fell apart in Russia. Ivan, a retired veteran of World War II, enjoys spending his days playing chess with his neighbors outdoors. His granddaughter, Kadia, recently returned home from university. 3 childhood friends, Igor, Vadim, and Boris, who had always been treated differently and had more advantages, notice Kadia. Boris tries to flirt with her, suggesting something more intimate. But Vadim, who knows Kadia from school, warns him that she's not interested. Despite their true intentions, the boys manage to convince Kadia to come to their apartment under the guise of celebrating Boris's birthday, which doesn't even exist. They offer her drinks and try to act charming, making her feel progressively more uneasy. Kadia, wanting to escape, tells them her grandfather is waiting for her, but they dismiss her pleas. Frightened, the men stop her, then pull her into a room and hurt her and rape her. They keep raping her many times, then they let her go and put money in her purse. Kadia throws away some money, which a local drunkard attempts to pick up, but Igor retrieves it before him. Returning home, Kadia starts crying by the door. Her grandfather rushes to her side and tries to comfort her. He notices bruises and blood on her legs and asks her, with just one question, who did this? Upset and scared, Kadia retreats to the bathroom and starts washing herself, worried about the emotional state she's in. Her grandfather, understanding what happened without needing further explanation, forgives her for any perceived wrongdoing and warns her against doing anything rash. He then grabs a meat tenderizer hammer and heads towards the apartment across the street, where his granddaughter's attackers reside. Alexei, the district policeman, spots him and notices his rage. He inquires about the situation, and Ivan explains everything. The policeman instructs him to return home and pull Kadia out of the bathroom immediately, preventing her from washing away any evidence left by the rapists. Alexei calls for backup, and they head together to the apartment. The captain, to gain access, removes his uniform and pretends to be upstairs. A neighbor, under the pretense of a flooding apartment, rings the doorbell, creating a distraction. This allows the captain to break down the door and enter the apartment. He separates the men and starts questioning them. While Vadim claims it was consensual, all the evidence contradicts him: broken dishes, blood on the bedspread, and scratch marks on the men themselves. The captain gets tough and tries to pin the blame on each of the guys, almost getting a confession. But then, a police colonel shows up, revealing he's one of the guys' fathers. He asks for them to be handed over to him. The captain says he'll do it if ordered, otherwise, he'll take them to the police station. A new twist emerges. These guys regularly throw parties on Wednesdays where things like this happen. Maybe not always assault, but women keep showing up. The colonel wants them taken to the main police station, but the captain, knowing they'd be out in no time, refuses and takes them local. Meanwhile, Ivan suggests his granddaughter see a doctor, but she refuses, worried she'll have to spill everything. After lots of convincing, she agrees. The doctor comes, reassures Ivan, and says it's not so bad, and Kadia is handling it well. He suggests Ivan make her favorite dish. The next day, Kadia's rapists are already out. Later, Ivan gets a call from Kadia's mother, promising to visit after a business trip. Ivan tells Kadia the news and says it's time to talk to the investigator. At the police station, the corrupt investigator accuses Kadia of lying and just wanting money from the guys, realizing she washed away the evidence. The next day, on his way home, Ivan sees the rapists and stares them down silently. When they ask what he's looking at, he says he remembers their faces. At the prosecutor's office, Ivan tries to seek justice, but, seeing corruption, he calls the prosecutor a jerk and slams the door. Leaving home, an older man goes to the bank to ask for $5,000 by offering his parents' house and land. The banker initially thinks it's too pricey, but the man knows the area will become valuable due to an upcoming expressway. After confirming, the banker agrees to the deal. When Ivan returns home, she tells her grandfather that a colonel gave her money. Furious, her grandfather takes the money and confronts the colonel, throwing it back at him. The next day, Kadia tells her grandfather that their neighbor left keys for her. She heads to the countryside and asks them to look after her pet and plants. While in his friend's apartment, the grandfather notices a window with a good view of his granddaughter's harasser's balcony. The next morning, he takes his gardening tools and goes to the market. When Ivan goes to the market, he looks at the weapons for sale, but he only sees weapons for causing harm. While he's there, a salesman approaches him and asks if he wants to buy a rifle. Ivan explains that he needs a rifle with a special scope and bullets. The soldier realizes Ivan wants the rifle for revenge and mentions a price. But Ivan says all the rifles have already been sold. and the grandfather is taken blindfolded to make the purchase. At the military unit, he buys a sniper rifle and ammunition. After some practice, the military notices his skills. Returning home, he hides the rifle and finds his daughter with a younger suitor. When she learns he sold their house, she demands money, but he tells her he doesn't have any. Kadia's mother decides to confront the colonel for the money. Furious, the old man kicks his daughter out of the house. Later that night, he secretly takes a rifle to his friend's apartment and positions himself as a sniper. The following Wednesday, Ivan acts normal, watching a chess game in the courtyard to create an alibi. When he sees the guys arrive, he heads to his spot. He aims at one of them but gets interrupted by the doorbell. The mail carrier arrives, and Ivan keeps his cover. Then, Ivan takes aim at Igor but is distracted when the champagne pops. He shoots him in the groin as he opens the bottle. After hiding the weapon and shell casing, he acts as if nothing happened. An ambulance arrives, taking one of the guys to the hospital. When Kadia comes home and asks, her grandfather denies knowing anything. A colonel arrives at the guy's apartment, revealing the unfortunate result of the shot. As they leave, the colonel notices a prostitute and invites her in. Local officer Alex suggests they file a complaint together, but Ivan declines for now. The colonel tells his son they're being hunted. The next day, the precinct officer suspects something, realizing the shot came from a neighboring building. The following Wednesday, Ivan spots one of the rapists arriving in a car. He goes to his sniper position and shoots an incendiary round into the gas tank. The car explodes, but Boris survives. Before long, a fire truck comes and stops the fire. Then, a colonel comes with investigators to check everything. The colonel tells his son they found a bullet hole near the gas tank. He thinks someone is targeting them. This scares Vadim a lot. You can tell he's panicking and almost having a breakdown. Police officer Alexei goes to Ivan's house and asks Kadia to call her grandfather, but she says he's not there. Alexei notices keys on the electric meter and asks about them. Kadia explains they're from her friend's apartment across the street. Alexei takes the keys and checks out the supposed sniper spot. Meanwhile, Vadim, in a panic, loads a shotgun, waiting for the supposed attacker. The colonel investigates and finds out Ivan recently sold his house. He figures out Ivan is seeking revenge for what happened to Kadia. With investigators, the colonel searches Ivan's apartment but finds nothing. Then, Ivan's friend arrives asking for the keys back. The colonel takes the keys and goes to the apartment where the rifle was supposed to be. They search but find nothing. The colonel approaches Ivan, knowing it was him but unable to prove it. He threatens him, saying he'll make things hell if anything happens to Vadim. Ivan implies it's already too late, and something has happened. Panicked, the colonel rushes to his son's apartment. Suddenly, a shot is fired through the door, injuring the colonel. Investigators take away the shotgun and call an ambulance. Local policeman Alexei stops Ivan and asks him to go with him. Ivan notices his rifle with Alexei. The policeman takes the weapon and sends Ivan away. The movie ends with Ivan returning home, listening to his granddaughter play the guitar and sing.